Welcome back to Deathsie's Dueling Academy. Alright guys, welcome back to another video here. We are about, how many weeks now? About 2 weeks into Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. And it's been a very wild ride. This format has been one of the most fun formats that I've played in a very long time. And I'm going to kind of go through a little bit about how this format has evolved from the initial periods to the current period where it is now. And I am going to talk a little bit about like the perception of color combinations and essentially what's good in this format. So in the beginning, this format was supposed to be a format that was all about mutating big creatures, right? You had these giant monsters where you mutated onto them, and like every single time you mutated onto them, they would get bigger, and then you would get like more of the same effect. One of the best mutate cards that we've seen has been Auspicious Therix. This card, you know, just one of the main reasons to play green in the first place, and really potent stuff if your opponent doesn't have essentially the removal for it, right? You're playing it and you're getting all of these effects, whether it's Asterix or if it's Cavern Whisper, you know, making them discard cards from their hand. You have a lot of these cards that really reward you for building a sort of deck that has non-humans in it, and you can mutate onto it. Therefore, cards like Farfinder, for example, right, were one of the best things about the format, one of the highest picks, a card that goes in every single deck, and a card that helps you not only get the land to mutate and fix your mana, but also to have a vigilant body to mutate onto. And that's kind of what Ikoria felt like in the beginning. In the beginning as well, we were really getting used to this idea of companions. Now, I am going to make a separate video on companions and about like my rating of the companions and stuff like that, so look forward to that. But you can check out here, by the way, if you don't have this available to you yet, at Deathsie.com. You can check out my tier list for all of the sets from Ikoria all the way, you know, down to Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan if you so need. But yeah, so the companions, we were playing around with companions quite a bit, and it turns out almost all of the companions outside of Zerda, in my opinion, at the moment, are actually just very good, with Lutri being the absolute best one. It's a format that really rewards you for having a specific game plan, and because of that, I think that these companions really do give you good build-arounds, and the power level is there of not only getting the extra card, but allowing you to always just have that card guaranteed once you have the mana, right? So either, whether it's Lutri, or whether it's a card like, like, where are you here? Where are you? 4 mana, Amori. Whether it's that or a companion like Amori, you know, where it basically forces you to have humans only. It is a really good way to spike power in a format like this. Now, since that sort of initial period of last week, when we were, you know, exploring a lot of these color combinations and seeing what this format's all about, one of the most, I guess, upsetting developments is, if you look down here, what my rating of colors were red and white being the weakest. So red and white, standalone, if you look at them, they have kind of the weakest cards, I think. Like, I've updated this recently, but before there were very few A tier and B tier cards. And for the most part, the bulk of the cards were C's and D's. Now that has changed. There is now an archetype, or I guess people have discovered an archetype that seems to be the actual best archetype in the format. A little bit unimpressive, I guess, but one of the things that takes advantage of the cycling mechanic in Ikoria is actually this card here, Zenith Flare. So this is an uncommon. Everyone and their mom seems to have one, and it's not necessary in a cycling deck, but the thing is, a red-white cycling deck with it, it's very hard to beat it. It is damage from off the board. It helps you win races. It can target face. It can target creatures. It does everything you want for essentially something that you're trying to do anyways, which is drafting all of the 1-mana cyclers. So this format has been weird in the sense that really color combinations are the least important that I've ever seen them in a format. And what does that mean? What that means is essentially it's not really about there being like, oh, a blue-black in this format is like really, really good. A green-black is really, really good, or like, you know, white-blue or whatever. It is a lot about just trying to figure out like what is one really good thing that you can do, and actually picking up the cycling cards, I believe, very, very early in a way to stay open, because most of the time these 1-mana cycling cards, so for example cards like a card that doesn't look very impressive, a card called Imposing Vantasaur, right? Imposing Vantasaur is going to be just, it is a derpy creature. 6 mana, 3/6 is not a good stat line in any format. However, it does have cycling 1, and what it essentially does is that it shrinks your deck, right? So instead of having a 40-card deck, you basically now have a 39-card deck. And then you also have synergies with Imposing Vantasaur, things like, you know, reanimation stuff to just bring it back from the graveyard. You have stuff like, Survivor's Bond, right? Which allows you to bring something back to your hand from the graveyard as well. And of course, you have cycling rewards, cycling payoffs. So most of the cycling payoff cards are going to be red and white. So these cycling payoffs, the biggest ones right now are actually Prickly Marmoset and a Snare Tactician, which I jokingly put it as S tier now, just because this card has been so hard to beat. But these cards really reward you for having a small deck, and then also, you know, at the cost of essentially 1 mana to cycle something, you get these huge payoffs of, you know, on top of these cards that are already well statted. So what this format has been for me, or what it feels like at the moment, is that basically everyone is drafting red-white. Okay, so at least in the higher ranks, it seems like the people in the know are drafting these red-white decks, and everyone seems to have Zenith Flare as well. I don't know exactly how that happens, but the majority of these top-tier decks are going to be red-white decks. And this Snare Tactician, it's incredibly hard for the majority of decks to beat. So unless you are actually like playing red or black, you can't really kill this in a very efficient way. So interacting with these cards is a huge flaw, in my opinion, of the format. And it, in all honesty, hasn't been very fun just playing against red-white cycling decks over and over again. So kind of the point that I'm at in this format is kind of wondering how we reapproach the concept of staying open. So normally what we think about staying open in Magic in a draft is that we want to be taking the cards that are paying us off the highest, right? So for example, a card like Everquill Phoenix, right? So Everquill Phoenix, we will probably take this, in a normal format, we would take this very, very highly, because this is like a quote-unquote bomb that you can play, and you get rewarded for being in that color because this is a bomb. However, in this format, it really feels like you want to be keeping your options open, not actually picking the colored cards, but actually picking more of the cards like Imposing Vantasaur. And it seems so weird, because it's almost the opposite of what we normally do, right? Where it's like, normally whenever we're reading signals in a draft, we look for the colors that are open. But in this format, it almost seems like the opposite, where it's like you want to actually pick up the 1-mana cyclers first, and then after that, see what's left over and try to move into that, whether that's the red-white cycling deck or not. So you're trying to pivot away from it and staying open by actually taking 1-mana cycling cards. So instead of actually just getting straight power, you want to actually leave yourselves open to a higher power potential later on by staying open with these random 1-mana cycling cards. And there's actually quite a lot of them. The vast majority of them are actually quite good. So let me pull up these 2 cards here. Go for Blood, and the next card here is going to be Memory League. So these cards on their own without cycling is nothing special, right? Go for Blood, 2 mana sorcery speed, 2 things fight each other. Not very exciting, but you add cycling 1 to it, and then all of a sudden this is a first pickable card. Cards like Memory Leak as well. Nothing exciting about a 3 mana steal, you know, exile something from your opponent's hand or graveyard, but you put cycling 1 on it, all of a sudden it's very, very good. So I think that's kind of how this format is supposed to be drafted. I am very interested to see how the format evolves once, assuming that we're not already in the end game, the late stages of a draft format, meaning that once everybody knows what to do, that's kind of what this format looks like. So right now, you still have a lot of people, whenever you're drafting, especially in Magic Arena, who don't really know to take the 1 mana cyclers. And on the flip side, it's still hard because it's hard to know when to pivot away, when a color is actually open, when to read a signal, because signals in this format are not going to be as clear as signals in a normal format, right? So remember we were talking about the companions. So the thing about the companions is that they have, requirements to them, whether it is, Lutri that requires you to have every single card being different in your deck, every single non-land card being different, or Amori, that every single card has to be one certain type. You get a lot of people that are doing kind of weird things on different levels, right? So you get on one axis, this person doing some, like, trying to go for a cycling deck, picking cycling cards high. You get another person trying to fulfill the requirements of Amori, another person fulfilling the requirements of Lutri. And then what you get when the packs are actually flowing is that you get a very, very mixed signal of what is going on in the format, what's actually open, and what you should be drafting. So for all those reasons, that's kind of why you want to be leaning towards picking up the cycling cards, unless it's something that actually provides you a direction. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I don't know how this format's going to shift. I don't know how that's going to change once people catch on to the sort of philosophy of picking up the 1 mana cyclers very, very highly. And we really need to see what that means for the draft format because, well, right now, the red-white decks, especially in high mythic for Magic Arena, is extremely impressive. It's very, very hard to beat Snare Tacticians. It's very, very difficult, and especially when some people get the actual, like, nuts red-white cycling deck, since nobody, if it's not contested at their table, that is a very, very hard archetype to beat, and a very, very miserable experience for everyone you face on the ladder. So, if more people start drafting it, I think that with the human drafts now in Magic Arena, it should, to some extent, self-correct. Though I will be very impressed if there is any sort of archetype in Ikoria that goes beyond the sort of red-white archetype. Because the red-white archetype, once again, it is made up of essentially commons. And then every once in a while, you get, a bonus of Reptilian Reflection, or you get a bonus of the Zenith Flare. So really, really weird formats. In the beginning, I'd rated a lot of these red cards very, very lowly, which, for example, Reptilian Reflection, I probably should move this up to a B. It has become the dominating factor of the format, where I think that the other colors don't really have a good way to keep up with it. Especially if you're in a color combination like blue-white. You really cannot remove these random cards like Snare Tactician. You can pacify them, you can capture sphere them, but it's not really going to do anything. You're still going to die. So, really weird format. I went from absolutely loving it to kind of dreading it at the moment. I've been, playing around with a lot of low land count decks, experimenting with a lot of different types of cycling decks to see if, well, how good is a green-black deck if you just pick up all the 1 mana cyclers? Is it fine? Is it not fine? And everything has still fallen short of just having a good red-white cycling deck, unfortunately. But, yeah, again, one big hope for me is that this format does get better in terms of what you can draft. So, yeah. Really, really weird stuff. I think that if I had a choice, I would probably ban the Snare Tactician from this draft format. and probably make some of these other cards like Prickly Marmoset into an uncommon, and I think that's a little bit better because these other colors at the moment can't really compete. But who knows? Maybe if the red-white deck gets popular enough, maybe these other colors are going to be a little bit more open, and it'll be a little bit easier to read signals. So, good luck, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe down below, and follow me on Twitch to watch me live and to ask questions.